The At Your Insta podcast is brought to you by Comic Town. Check them out at www.comictown.net or search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook. Hello, and welcome to At Your Insta. My name is Morgan, I'm here with Dave.
Hello.
And Mike.
Hello.
We have another fun-filled episode for you guys this week. We have quite a few community topics actually to discuss before jumping into the weekend that was the Star City Games Open in good old Columbus, Ohio. That we all attended, so we definitely wanted to discuss it at some length. And then we actually have a question of the week before we jump into the wrap-up of the show. So let's get things started off right with the community topics. So first and foremost, San Diego Comic-Con has recently just passed at this point in time, and they again Hasbro is there en masse, pretty much. Obviously, they have a lot of brands they can represent there, and one of them is, of course, Wizards of the Coast. Yes, correct. We've switched from our Pokemon Go podcast to now a My Little Ponies podcast. It's actually we're going to combine it with Magic because we can just call it Friendship is Magic, and it's kind of continues
Man, that
to
podcast
work.
doesn't already exist. It really should.
No, I'm 100% positive it already exists. I'm just talking out my rear end, as it were. But no, obviously, Wizards is a brand that has always been represented there, at least for the past few years, with things like the Arena of the Planeswalkers board game, which I know they do a lot of stuff there, as well as the promos that we've seen. Typically, these are the gray on black sort of promos that have like highlights of the colors, and they're typically the Planeswalkers from the core set. Well, we don't have a core set, but they still did do a promo set. And this promo set was kind of fun, very flavorful to tie in with Innistrad. It was the zombie promos. So we had Liliana, which is the newest of the bunch showing up. Liliana the Last Hope as being a normal representation of Liliana. And then you had the other members of the Gatewatch show up as zombies. So you had the, printings of Jace, Chandra, Gideon, and Nissa from either Zendikar block or Shadows block show up and being zombified. And all the art was done by Steve Argyle, is that correct?
I would have to confirm. Let me click on the link I put here.
I might be wrong about that. But they all have the same artist, is what I want to get at, basically.
No, Eric Deschamps.
Eric Deschamps. I'm like, is one of the ones that does a lot of Planeswalkers, and Deschamps is definitely one of that you've probably have a lot of your favorite Planeswalkers being designed by him. But basically, they are all you can get the art and like sort of create a Facebook banner or what have you with sort of this interesting representation of the Planeswalkers that we have here, and some of them are fairly humorous. I think the Gideon is very funny. He's definitely has lost an arm and is choking himself with his own Serral. Jace is eating a brain, maybe his own.
Eating his own brain.
Yeah, it could be inferred to be his own. And Nissa is a plant, like basically. So it's kind of interesting. I know that there's definitely a lot of hype for these promos traditionally with the very stylized versions that we've had previously, especially with the Origins ones, big flip ones, which was really cool to kind of see. What are kind of our takes on these?
I don't like the art for these at all. I understand they're fun. I'm not saying like they shouldn't exist or anything. Like, have fun if you enjoy them, but this is not my cup of tea. Oh man, let's make them all zombie, and the next year we can make them all, I don't know, vampires. And I don't know. I get it. Liliana controls zombies. The Gatewatch now her zombies. I get it. I don't know. The black on black Planeswalkers didn't do much for me either, mainly because I can't see them.
Nobody can see him.
I'm just saying, I just literally can't discern them. I borrowed one from our buddy Keller once, and I was like, I'm glad I know what this card does because I could never read this ever. So I don't know. It's cool they keep doing something unique for this, and honestly, I think I've been more interested in like the books that accompany them than I've ever worried about the cards. The fact that these use the from the vault printing though,
Yeah,
sort
so-
of like ruined. Like I wouldn't even want to casually have them.
Yeah,
so.
that is a another thing that is very important to point out is like, yeah, they do use that particular printing, the particular foiling process, and there's been a lot of like vocal feedback on Twitter about how that process is miserable and no one likes it, and why they continue to use it. It is beyond us, but it literally is like creates unusable cards, basically, or cards that you could play, but could definitely like cause like issues with your constructed deck in a competitive level tournament or higher.
Yeah, I said this when they said that this was using that foil process. I was like, I've yet to come across one person that actually likes that foil process. So why do they keep using it? So
I mean, they exist. They're out there, but they're likely people that like don't open these,
Yeah.
like and just like have them for resale or something like that. I can't, or it's such a limited base. So there's definitely the ones that do not like this process far outweigh the ones that do. I think it's interesting. I think it's cool that they can kind of diversify and not just keep doing the same thing over and over again because, the same thing over and over again is going to get, tired, basically. But, it shows that they can...
The zombie trope is tired.
I definitely don't disagree with you, but I mean, I don't know. The market en masse might disagree with you in that facet. Zombies still seem to be quite popular with a lot of people.
You might be right, and this may be like a bunch of you listening right now will be like, "Well, Mike, you're dumb. This is a slam dunk." And I'm glad. I hope you enjoy it. It's just not. It's not for me.
Sure, it's probably not for any of us necessarily. I mean, we're not diehard collectors.
Now, I will say, our buddy Keller, who's been on the cast before, mostly for Paloozas, is sort of that diehard collector, and these turned him off. As well,
Yeah,
so
I mean-
that's a very narrow base to pull from. But
for sure, but I mean, I think that these probably won't be as desirable as the black on gray printings of the Planeswalkers, but I still think that they'll find a niche at the very least. I mean, the Liliana might be people something that people desire, or like the I could see the Jace, like the Unraveler of Secrets, could definitely be something that someone wants, just because it's Jace. He's just a titular character in the series, so people might want that. And he's eating his brain; it's funny. So I'm glad, and I wanted to see what they do next year. I think it also speaks, well to them continuing to do this, which I think a lot of people were wondering if they were even going to continue to do it, since they don't have a core set to pull from. So that's, I think, the more important part, and the more important takeaway is that you will likely still see this going forward.
fair enough.
So moving on. Recently, as of last week, there's been a new hashtag showing up on Twitter behind some notable faces, and it is the hashtag WOTC staff, or WotC staff.
Also used our Wizards employee or hashtag love my WotC job. So these are ones that also fit this.
Correct. And these are designated tags that must be used in social media as a whole, I assume, for posts by WotC employees. And this is sort of a step to provide transparency to let people know when things are said en masse to the public from people that work at WotC. I saw like a lot of sort of negative connotation with this when it was first released, but that kind of hubbub sort of died down by now. But a lot of people were not necessarily too keen on this. And basically just kind of not down with it, I guess.
So it says it's there for like transparency, which so one thing is interesting. So if everyone does use this hashtag, then you're like, I think this like somebody said something about this. Then you could search this hashtag on Twitter and find who said about it. Beyond that, though, I don't think it actually increases like transparency more. Like transparency means we get to know what you're talking about internally. That like, maybe we just don't know what transparency means. So it specifically means you can see through something. In this case, when we ask for transparency from Wizards, we want to see through the process. Like we want to see what they're talking about. So I don't know. It does help certain employees differentiate between like when they're tweeting in general or when they're tweeting about Magic stuff. So that's interesting at least. But I don't know. This doesn't feel like it's helpful in many ways.
So I can potentially give you an idea of what this could be about. And this is something to do with something completely in a different game, about something different. There is a recent scandal about some streamers and an idea that used to happen basically in Counter-Strike Go or CS:GO. It was basically called skin gambling, where the game basically you could purchase skins for your weaponry, your loadouts. Basically, that happens. Well, these two streamers were basically advertising the site, but not necessarily being very clear that they were owners of said site, and caused a little bit of hubbub of potentially leading people there, not like saying, "Hey, I also am a proprietor of this." Also, some nasty stuff looped in with like underage gambling on connected to these sites. So I think that also is probably more of the transparency they're actually leaning towards, being like, I make this product. I am an employee of WotC. So if I'm saying good things about this product, it's because I am a maker of said product.
Okay, and that's fair. But as they mention in their post, that it's not like anybody, like it doesn't stop anyone from using this. Yeah, Twitter doesn't stop me when I start hashtag WotC, and when Twitter goes, I see you're trying to use a hashtag that you aren't an employee of a certain, so I don't know if it actually helps that much. Like, in all reality, this could also be used to like boost like horrific things, like blank everybody hashtag WotC staff. Hey, retweet this a bunch.
Sure.
Thanks, guys. So I don't know if it does anything like that, really, but maybe it does. Maybe that's the spirit of it.
It's more than likely just as they say in the corporate environment, a CYA sort of thing, which is cover your, rear end sort of thing.
Couch yellow armchair?
Yes, couch yellow armchair.
All
correct.
right,
yes. No, that's more than likely what it is. Basically, it's probably something that they can point to in a legal matter, where it's like, well, people were advised that I work for Wizards of the Coast.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. That's what it has to be, in my opinion.
Sure.
That's the only thing. This is no transparency as to the goings-ons within Wizards.
Right.
It is more like, I legally need to declare that I am an employee of Wizards, so we don't get sued.
Sure. I regret putting this in the community notes now. This is just really sad.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, it's my fault. I put it in there.
That's just what it has to be. I think it's important, though. I mean, and a lot of times in Twitter, what you see is a lot of people post like, my opinions are my own. They do not relate to
that is true. Yeah.
who I work for. But
maybe WotC staff is shorthand for it.
I mean, I think for a company as big as WotC, you kind of just have to have something in place, and I'm sure their lawyers had to put that in place.
So have they started using this yet? 'Cause
Yes.
I haven't noticed it.
They have,
Yes,
yeah.
they
Okay.
100% have. And
Okay.
it was a bigger thing, obviously, when it first kind of rolled out last week, but it has kind of, like I said, died off. Things happen fast on the internet. People are enraged, and then they just forget, and they look at a picture of a cat, and they go, what was I upset? I don't know. Anyway. So moving on, we actually have some changes to the Pro Tour to talk about that were not discussed, on the actual mothership, but were actually given to us by Matt Sperling, lovely polarizing pro player, talking about
Nice alliteration.
Yeah, you're welcome. I try. I'm pretty on point. Pretty on point tonight. We'll see how long that lasts. And he just wanted to kind of let us know about a couple of new things changing to the Pro Tour. So the first of which is electronic deck list submission, which is kind of hilarious to me because I feel like a lot of tournament organizers in our neck of the woods at other tournaments we've been to offer this service. Typically, it is a for pay service. It is something that you would do if you have a sleep in special that you paid for or something of that nature. So for it to start showing up just now on the Pro Tour seems laughable. But it is I would say, a positive change. Now, the downside of this is they actually need your deck lists a little bit earlier than they technically would have beforehand. Somewhere around roughly about a day or some large amount of hours earlier.
Yeah, I think it said the Thursday before.
Correct.
So the day before the Pro Tour.
Correct. So the Thursday before, but the amount of actually hours early is like comparatively to when you would have had to have it. So it's not like a whole day earlier, technically speaking. So that is the downside. Is you are submitting your decks earlier, so you potentially have you definitely have less time for last minute changes, modifications. If you get new information at the last minute, there's nothing you can do about it. But I know LSV was actually talking about this on his stream, and he said typically most of the time your deck's pretty much locked in at that point. You're just talking about like decisions, and you're just talking. You're not testing. So,
well, I think he has a different perspective than probably most players on the Pro Tour because he's usually part of big teams that have a team list, whereas like me or Mike playing our own brews or whatever, might be a little different.
Yeah.
I know that the last Pro Tour that I played in, I made a last second change in the day of, but
no more. I apologize. You're gonna have to lock it in a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, you don't have that opportunity to make that last minute change. And this is the first time they're doing it. Maybe in the future they'll be you'll be able to have a little bit more time, but I won't foresee that being the case necessarily. But we will see. What happens with that. But this will be nice. Obviously, this allows the coverage team to obtain deck lists earlier. Allows them to have legible, clean deck lists to actually look at.
That's a huge point.
Yes, for sure. So that's very nice, and I think like this is a positive change overall. The other thing is how they're going to be doing pairings. So I'll kind of run through the bullet points that Sperling has here. It says pairings will be posted in the venue as usual. However, they will not list the names of opponents. At the time the pairings are announced, players cannot use electronic devices until the end of their matches. Feature matches will not be announced as pairings. They will be announced simply as a list of players. Players will receive their pairing assignments from the judges in the feature match area. Pairings that are posted on the WotC website will not be posted until a few minutes after each round begins. And then the period of time from pairings being announced until matches begin will be strictly timed at 4 minutes. And roughly what WotC is trying to help do here is curb scouting. And this is something that has been, I think, year over year becoming more of a actively noticeable downside about the Pro Tour, an actively noticeable negative thing that pros have started to talk about more, because people scout. Like it's just a thing that kind of happens magic, and we've talked about scouting before on this very podcast. And this basically is to prevent people from being able to do that as easily. But I know Sperling obviously had some interesting takes on the whole thing.
Yeah, so this is interesting. He sort of thought it was a little bit negative because it does disproportionately, at least in his mind, affect more notable players, which he may be right. People will much more quickly know. He mentions like Owen Turtenwald's deck before anyone else's. So some people will still get to maintain that information. He goes to some extremes, though. He suggests that like it would disincentivize people wearing like team shirts and stuff, so you don't want to see them hanging out with each other. It's like, okay, like let's roll back here for a second. And he sort of makes mention of himself at the end that like the more notable you are, it means the more successful you are. So sometimes you have to deal with sort of harsher scrutiny, which I think is a totally reasonable assessment. This is sort of interesting because I know Dave, the last Dublin was recent enough that we've had sort of the advent of modern, I'd say modern smartphones, but I'm assuming the last time that you went to the Pro Tour of Japan, right? Like we didn't have like.
You mean the first time I went?
I'm sorry. I meant the time before Dublin. It was Japan, right?
It was Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, okay.
2010.
2010 Amsterdam. So like 2010, maybe not as easy to access. Your Google Docs on the fly, and definitely like the further you go back. You know what I mean? Pro Tour wise, the harder it is to use scouting effectively. People could still do it paper and pencil style, running around. But like literally now, like when I was there, now I'm assuming Dublin was just like this too, but literally you had people walking back and forth every row, and they had the walls set up, so you had like people like Wilsoning over the wall, you know what I mean, like Home Improvement style to look at what you're pairing, and then like as soon as pairings were called, every single person had their smartphone out who had access to these spreadsheets, and they knew what you were playing immediately. Was Dublin like that for you?
Not that I noticed. I didn't notice, to be honest.
It was very noticeable. I had an opponent call a judge at one point to ask them to get the 3 people watching our match to walk away, which the judge said no, he can't stop them from doing that. Which I'm like, I don't even know why. I wasn't doing well at that point. But he was upset because 3 of them literally had had either pads of paper out or their phone out as they're like watching and typing cards down. And like I said, I wasn't part of a team, but he was part of a team. So like, he's upset because he doesn't want to give away stuff for his team, and it's I get that. And it was just weird to have like what felt like vultures. It's like these are people who are not playing in the event. Even like you have people who are
that's where how far it's gotten,
and like you people getting paid to do this. Like so it's weird. So I think trying to curb that is totally fine. And again, to go back to Sperling's point, so yes, maybe it does hurt the team a small portion. I think that's okay though. You know what I mean? The team has such a huge bonus working with the players they are working with and working with the list that they are working with, that I think it's okay to allow a couple of the grinders who have come in, like myself coming off an RPTQ, to at least have the sanctity of my secret deck list for a few rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head there, where scouting's gotten more and more extreme, I guess, as technology's kind of evolved. But I mean, I think it's always been advantageous to somebody who is lesser known, or like somebody who top fours or a regional PTQ, or is not working with a large team. I think it's always going to be beneficial to that person, because people aren't really going to know who they are, and maybe they're not going to have a quote unquote team deck, that maybe multiple people are playing. So I know for me, I felt like I was advantaged as far as that went. I played in Dublin, I played against a French gentleman in round 1, and I kind of knew what team he was working with, and I played against one of his teammates, and I just kind of knew that he was playing Mono Blue Devotion when I played against him. So and I can almost guarantee they didn't know what I was playing, because who am I? But so I don't know.
That scenario may still very well happen, but what happens now because of scouting, that your opponent's playing Mono Blue Devotion because you played against it earlier and you saw what card you saw. Mm-hmm. But after a couple of rounds, especially the major decks, these teams literally have access on a literally card by card basis. You will see these cards game 1. Sometimes it goes as far as sideboard. Okay, these cards are in the sideboard, and you're just like, dear lord, okay. Now the alternative here that Sperling suggests is that maybe you should make it all open. You know what I mean? Everybody gets their opponent's deck lists for each round. The logistics on that are a nightmare. So I don't really know how you do that, but I don't disagree with that either.
Yeah, that's the only way. If you want to make it truly even playing field, that's the only way to really do it. Otherwise, some form of scouting is always going to be part of the Pro Tour, no matter what you do. Now, this new rule I do like. Scouting's still going to happen. It's just going to be a slower process. It might take a couple more rounds to kind of get everybody down versus, being able to have everything on a Google Doc spreadsheet. So, it'll slow it down, and that's nice. It's not going to completely stop it, but it kind of is what it is. I don't think they should go the route of just having all open deck lists, because it even mentions in the article that it kind of takes away some of the mystery. You know what I mean? Somebody might have maybe they have a transformational sideboard or something like that, which that's always one of my favorite aspects of the game. So being able to kind of juke somebody in post board games, I enjoy that. So. I like having a little bit of the mystery still there.
Yeah, I like that too. I like these changes. Sorry, Sperling.
No joke. So moving on, we'll touch on this one real quick. We did get an update on the promos that we'll be seeing at F&M, and we got all the way through October. And October's promo was going to be Rise from the Tides, Shadows over Innistrad, the limited All-Star.
Standard All-Star?
No, standard
garbage cards.
Can
you play these promos in your draft deck?
No,
So why did they print them?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
Maybe maybe there's a deck. Maybe there's a Rise from the Tides deck.
Alright,
We just haven't
alright.
found it yet. Maybe Kaladesh rolls around and people are like, "Oh man, Rise from the Tides, we did it. We broke it." Now we bring this up mainly because of the wording. The wording has actually changed from this card, which is hilarious because this card is not old. Obviously, it is from Shadows over Innistrad, and it says now, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. Previously, this card were read put a
Put a 2/2 black zombie creature token on the battlefield for each instant or sorcery in your graveyard.
yeah.
Yeah, this is weird. This wording feels old to me. Like this feels like an older type. Like, you know what I mean? Like
removed from the game entirely.
yeah, exactly. Now, Morgan did some digging and did find that Morrow had confirmed that this is a new wording for tokens in Kaladesh. So there's got to be a reason behind this, which would be interesting. No, it's not so you can get your Steam Flogger boss working. He also confirmed that those aren't going to be in Kaladesh.
So likely this will be like in conjunction with some cards that say whenever you create a token, do this or that. One would have to, imagine whenever you create.
It's just weird because then it create technically. So create also implies enters the battlefield. So why do we need to do this? Like that, I don't like that for that reason because now they're going to share space. Like create means when you put tokens onto the battlefield. So it's like, well, why doesn't it just say when you put a token on the
Yeah.
what? Like I don't like that. But we'll see. They have a reason. They have a reason.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be one of those things where it's gonna sound a little weird at first, but after a little while, it's not gonna be a big deal.
And it could just be cleaner because a good example of this is how Gideon Ally of Zendikar, how that would change. So Gideon currently reads, put a 2/2 white knight ally creature token onto the battlefield. New wording would just say create a 2/2 white knight ally creature. I guess it would have to say token. Yeah, creature token.
It would say token. So it doesn't. I guess it. I don't know. So it makes sense from that perspective because I guess the whole reason for die was to remove put into the graveyard from play.
Yeah,
So-
that's pretty similar. I think
It is. I don't know. We'll see. It sounds so old. It's just very
Yeah,
confusing.
maybe
to
that's
me.
just a poor card to see it on. you know?
Maybe.
Yeah, as long as the rules aren't changed, like you said, if you're creating a token, is that technically entering the battlefield? If everything is the same, then I don't have a problem with this. If it changes the rules, and then I think it'll be confusing.
I think one of the reasons it sounds old to me is because it also sounds like summon, which is something they got
Yeah.
rid of. So
Right.
whenever you summon a creature, well, no, we want it to say enters the battlefield. It's like, well, but
But is summoning a spell?
Yeah.
Does that count?
anyways, though, so just something interesting that we'll probably circle back around to once we get to the Kaladesh rules update.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, I would, go through some of the old cards that create creature tokens and just say it with the new wording, raise the alarm.
in the mirror, that way you gain confidence.
Yeah, exactly. It's just remembering a speech.
Remember, and imagine all the tokens in their underwear.
Yeah, that's how you get over the butterflies.
Create all of them in your imagination.
Yeah, but so just kind of see how this changes. I think Rise from the Tides is a weird one to see it on because that's just kind of a weird card in general. But when you look at other cards that do that same thing with creating creature tokens, it makes a little more sense. So I would encourage you to do that and see how it sounds. But lastly, for our community topics, we have our Vorthos check-in, as it were. We kind of got a culmination story for the Shadows over Innistrad block, and basically how Emrakul was defeated per se. And this isn't something that's been kind of out in the wild, or at the very least you saw the card that basically inferred that Emrakul was going to go into Dat Moon, but it kind of kind of threw a little bit of a curveball, as it were. Now, if you're not really interested in the Magic story, I guess it's not really that necessarily important to you, but at the very least, it kind of gives you an idea of what could be happening potentially, in the future of where we're going in Magic. Now, Mike, you read more of it than Dave and I have.
I diligently read the entire piece.
I skimmed through it very not diligently.
So I'll give you some bullet points. Jace built a mental tower for himself to sort of stop the Gatewatch from having their minds melted by Emrakul, but it took him some time to dig his way out of it. While digging his way out of it, he played a game of chess against Emeria, so that was interesting. So Emrakul talked to Jace and played chess against him, and then laughed at him when Jace beat Emeria at chess, and then all the chess pieces turned into tentacles, and Emiria's like, "Nah, they're all my pieces." He's like, "But I thought I won," and she's like, "Nah, I just got tired of playing." But she makes mention of how this isn't right. She's not ready yet, and this her inclusion on this plane is somehow incomplete. And she also mentions a scroll that Tamio had, which if you had read before, that's how she uses her spells. And she alters one. So when they're binding Senor Emrakul to the moon, I don't know why I said that. Senorita. I don't know why I even did that. It just rolled off the tongue. Tamio gets taken over by Emrakul and reads from the Ironbound spell, which may be the spell that's reciting the memory of the collapse of the Sarah's plane, which for you old school players like myself, who are familiar with that lore, it's yeah. But she mentions that she had no control over this. Emrakul did it, and then when she read the scroll, there were changes made to it. And Emrakul bound herself to the moon, and Tamio doesn't know why, and the Gatewatch doesn't know why, and now they're all kind of in this weird limbo where it's Emrakul wanted this to happen, and I guarantee there's an escape clause. As I already mentioned, pretty sure that Steve took out a really, really large life insurance policy right before she got sucked into the moon.
Likely.
So they were conspiring together to commit, insurance fraud, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works on Innistrad, though.
Well, I mean, he's on Innistrad. That's the best part. He doesn't have to explain it to the to the Thraben militia. He doesn't explain it to them.
He doesn't have to explain it to any Inquisitors or anything like that.
Absolutely.
I hope there are insurance Inquisitors, by the way, on Innistrad.
there are.
So you're saying the Innistrad law does not apply?
Yeah, no, of course not.
But where is Steve, though?
I don't know what plane Steve's from.
Is it on Zendikar? Or?
I doubt it.
I mean, they would have had to meet on Zendikar, let's be fair.
Well, yeah.
Maybe he went somewhere else just to kind of
I don't think
lay low.
Steve's a planeswalker or anything like that.
But Emrakul could take him through the Blind Eternities.
And that sounds like a rough trip.
I can show you the multiverse.
Have you seen Spatial Contortions, man? You've seen what Blind Eternities is? Steve's all I don't know. Steve's one of those flapping inflatable arm guys. Is that what he is?
Steve married Emrakul. He's totally into the Spatial Contortions, man.
I guess that's true.
Anyways, though.
Whatever Steve likes.
The implication here, though, is pretty impressive that Emrakul allowed this to happen and actively brought this to happening. So, it means that Emrakul is, I think the set makes it feel like Emrakul is down for the count and sort of this is really way too easy. But the story did a really good job of sort of letting us know that, she'll come back when she wants to. She just wanted a nap.
It's all part of the plan.
I'm not excited about this. I just wanted to be done with Eldrazi's.
But I think that's important though. This is supposed to be one of the major villains of the multiverse, and if they could literally just take out all three of them without any sort of issue, so I think they don't have to go back to Emrakul for a while now, but they can leave this while implying that by the way, Emrakul's not as ridiculously a pushover that it made it sound like. She was like, "Nah, it's cool. I'll get you later."
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad for story. I think story-wise, it makes it much more interesting. But I just don't want there to be any more.
Yeah, we need a gap. We need a gap.
Done. Yeah.
I will say, I think the more interesting point of the actual story was that Liliana was not part of the whole mental defense thing. She was fighting Emrakul one-on-one with her zombie army, and was holding her own one-on-one for a while with the Chain Veil. And it makes mention very specifically that she was as close to feeling the power that she had before, because she is a pre-mending walker, technically, than she ever has since then. Remember that Nicol Bolas definitely sent her on the quest to find these demons and then the Chain Veil. So if she found an item that made her feel like a pre-mending walker, Nicol Bolas is going to be interested to hear about that. How powerful that make you feel? Interesting.
I'd see Nicol Bolas in the Chain Veil. I don't know how well I don't know if he can pull it off.
Oh, he looked gorgeous.
I mean, that's a pretty non-dragon look. To be fair, I think it's got to be very tiny on his. He's gonna just put it on one of his horns.
This, yeah.
I don't just put it. No, he's gonna put it on the center stone that he has. Right? He just slides it onto there.
You're beautiful.
Like a little crown, a little crown for his crown. Anyway,
wow.
That's what it would
So
be.
like it could go on his tooth and still be a crown for his crown.
Technically,
All right.
speaking dentally, yes.
Well,
But-
we definitely should talk about
Wow.
something else.
That sounds terrible. I just want Nicobolus to come in and like crack open the moon like a big egg. Be like,
So,
I'm gonna make an omelet.
Nicobolus is like dressed up in like salesman garb, like the full suit and the hat, and just like knocks on the moon. Miss Emrakul, I know I may be waking you up, and I apologize, but I really got to talk to you for a minute. I
Have
got
you heard the
something.
good news? I'm evil, and so are you.
Oh man,
Let's go wreck stuff.
let's go wreck stuff. when Nicobolus finally does figure out all the stuff that's going on, it's like, all right, well, because I don't know what he's been doing this whole time. Like he's like, all right, well, let's go check on those Eldrazi dead. And what about the other one? Trapped on the moon? What? Okay, well, at least Dugan's still alive.
I'm very confused.
I don't understand. Well, at least like Liliana, like she must have died because of really powerful, huh? And the plain ones they've done Gatewatch team Avengers. They're the Avengers.
They're a team now.
Oh, man.
They banded together.
I
I thought we don't do banding anymore.
Yeah, I hope he was doing something worthwhile because everything's just from his perspective is just
he's actually been raising prized hothouse tomatoes on his personal plane, and then taking them to various like farmers markets around the multiverse.
oh yeah, that's what he does in his spare time.
Yeah.
When he's not being evil, he's making
because
hothouse
in
tomatoes.
all honesty,
Are they evil hothouse tomatoes?
they are.
They killer tomatoes.
Honestly,
From outer
because the multiverse is a really long road to hoe.
Wow. Anyway, moving on. It's kind of interesting, we get Kaladesh after that, so I think it's going to be like a nice palate cleanser, and then I imagine that we'll probably be returning to another plane, so hopefully it's something cool. Might be Ravnica again. I think that those were the going rumors after, because we don't know anything after 8th Revolt, if I'm not mistaken,
No, we don't.
so...
Returning yet again to Ravnica.
Gonna run the Dragon's Maze again. No,
even,
Dragon's Maze 2.
even amazing here.
I'm ready to go back to New Phyrexia, but, I mean...
So
I think...
they could bring some oil into Kaladesh. Kaladesh is a place primed for some Phyrexian oil.
I think it'd be cool to have Karn. I think it'd be cool to have Karn on Kaladesh.
Yeah, I just want Karn as like a character again. I want to hear Karn because like all these other people, they're like, oh, this and that, and Karn's like the one who's like, I've seen some stuff, man.
Karn's like the old like vet, and then it's just like, oh, he has got some crazy stories. So it would be interesting to have him back again,
Sure.
especially with a plane full of machines.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it feels like
He's
we
like a
should just
kid in the candy
yeah,
store.
yeah, we should just have Karn back. It's all right.
The father.
The father. All right, so enough about the community. Let's go ahead and jump right into the competitive segment. So, over the weekend, we of course had Star City Games Columbus. We were all in attendance, and we all had varying records towards the ends of days 1 and 2. I did not day 2. I went 5 and 4. Unfortunately, could not squeak out an extra win anywhere. Definitely felt like. The deck I played was sweet, though. I think I made the right choice in playing when I did. I could have just played a little bit tighter and got that 6-3 and got the conversion over to day 2. But definitely had some frustrating games against decks where I just could not find enough action to close out a game or something like that, or made a wrong play or some persuasion and didn't quite get there. I do have to say that one of the coolest decks, or at least one of the more fun decks that I played against that was definitely showing off some strength of new cards, was definitely the Retreat to Hagra Splendid Reclamation deck. I believe that's the name of the card. So it combo killed you out because he would just dump a bunch of cards into his graveyard, many of them being lands, and then play a Retreat to Hagra and then return them all, and had a bunch of drain triggers that would finish you out. But also just played like a traditional sort of control deck that had that sort of surprise kill, and it was great. I couldn't even be angry about it. So that was a lot of fun to see. I definitely played against a fair share of Band Company across all of my my matches. So definitely, as you know, we'll kind of talk about in depth when we hit the tournament results. The deck was fairly well represented, but I played blue red Ulamog or blue red non-emerge Eldrazi. We did have Mike and I played the same list, and we did have a couple of Elder Deep Fiends, but the deck was more like the traditional blue red Eldrazi list that you saw pre Eldritch Moon. And the deck's fun. It's one of the few decks that actually plays Ulamog Ceaseless Hunger and plays it to great effect. Can play it very early with the help of Majoring Networks and Hedron Archives. Which is pretty good, and sometimes when you get that sucker online, they just can't do anything to sort of deal with it. So I'll probably play the deck again because I think it's it can be tweaked to have a pretty positive Band Company matchup, and you do have some access to the best sideboard cards against them, which. Can be counter spells and can be Rending Volley. Very good magic card against Band Company. And Blue White Spirits, things of that nature. So, yeah, that was my tournament report.
I guess I did the next worst.
the next worst.
The next worst. So I played White Red Humans. If you want to see my list, go check out Tom Ross's top 16 list. We played the same 75. So. Me and Tom Ross on the same page.
Well,
either that, or I just took his list from the previous one.
Like, if you put the deck list pages, they put 8 lists per page, and you have to click next. Mm-hmm. So you guys aren't actually on the same page because he's on the second page, and
I'm not on any page because I didn't finish on top 64.
Can't say you're on the same page if you're not on the same. Come on,
right? But by coincidence, we ended up playing the same 75, which, in all honesty, wasn't much change from his previous list. Really. The only card that was different from Tom Ross's previous top 8 at a classic, was the last one, was the one Repel the Abominable in the sideboard instead of the one Secure the Wastes. So it was kind of funny that I made that same change myself. But
that card was sweet in testing.
Yeah. So that card was in there specifically for... damage-based sweepers, such as I expected there to be a lot of Kozilek's returns, but it also works against Radiant Flames or Chandra Flamecaller, which obviously can easily sweep up your whole board. It was most effective for me on the weekend at racing Spirits decks. So using it as a fog, or they're not able to really block very well with that deck, so a lot of times you're just in these racing situations. So it actually did win me a game against the Spirits deck, which is pretty sweet. But so I don't know, but overall I finished 9-6, so just outside of a money finish. I had to really fight hard to even just day 2. I was 2-3 after 5 rounds, and had to rally and win the last 4 rounds of the day just to make day 2. So I was able to do that. Started off with 2 wins on day 2, and then managed to lose 3 out of the last 4 to miss. So it was tough. Managed to not play the mirror the whole time, which was kind of weird because every single round, either to the right or the left, there was another White Red Humans deck. But I just never played against one. Out of my 6 losses, 3 of them were to Bant Company. I had a loss to Jund Planeswalkers. Lost to Green White Humans. And I'm trying to think what the other one was. Like an Abzan control, almost like Jeff Hoogland's list from prior. Beat a bunch of Spirits decks. Beat a couple Band Companies. I think I played Band Company 5 times overall. But I don't know. I don't know if White Red Humans is where you want to be going forward if the format remains the same. feels like Band Company used to be favorable, and it feels like the deck is disadvantaged against it now. And I think Spell Queller is a big reason for that. The Spell Queller makes you have to play differently, and you can oftentimes your clock may not be as fast as it once was. You can't just go kind of all in and just play your spells into a Spell Queller, because it's just going to blow you out. So going forward, I don't think I'm going to be playing White Red Humans, at least not in the same iteration that it was. But I don't know. It was still overall. It was still like a fun weekend. I had a lot of fun playing. Had a lot of close and pretty competitive matches, even the ones I lost. So I can't be mad at that, really. I mean, but it was a little frustrating to come up just short of money.
I cashed.
Yay!
We did it. I finished 9-5-1. I drew my last round.
That's the coward's way out.
Okay. I'll be happy
Well,
when my check arrives.
Yeah, I mean, like, coward made money.
Honestly, it was fine. It's fine to draw there. Like, you can't. A win wasn't going to get me in the top 32. So the only way to not make money is to lose. So it seems loose.
That's what I did. So it was loose.
Yeah, but your breakers were a lot worse than mine. Like, I don't mean that like sort of negatively.
No, yeah, like going into day 2, I had literally the worst tiebreakers of all the X3s. Like I was the last one.
In literal 120th place.
Yeah.
Hey, day 2. So
yeah, we did it.
So as Morgan said, yeah, we played the same blue-red ramp list. I worked pretty hard on this. Like I kept trying to like move away from this list and work on different things, but I kept coming back to this and testing, and it was doing really, really well. And I was pretty happy with it. You may have seen me on camera round 1, actually.
That's very true.
I think it's more that I got lucky enough to get paired against Corey McDuffie, who's an open champion, playing a sort of a spicy version of Delirium. Because my deck wasn't playing that many new cards. Like I went back and watched the coverage of it because I definitely punted in game 1. I wanted to see if like they raked me over the coals, which they didn't. Man, I wish Cedric and Pat just always Peace Ollie there could always just do it. But what are you gonna do? But anyways, like I played a Gaia Reach Sanitarium on turn 3, and they like talked about it for the rest of the match because that's like the only new card I hadn't played at any time. So sorry guys, I didn't have any sweet like I said crop sigils or anything. But that matchup though, like if you want to see why I chose this deck and why like Morgan I think jumped on the bandwagon because Morgan, you were playing Delirium.
Yes, I was playing various versions of Green Black Delirium specifically,
and so was Jordan, former cast member, and also day 2 playing a Green Black Delirium deck.
Also day 2 also had the best record going into day 2
of the group. He was 7-2. This is true. And then he played Band Company 6 times on day 2. I think went 2-4, and he was hating life by the end of the day. I felt for him. He was not happy. But like I did a lot of testing. Like Jordan came over a couple days or one of the days last week, and we did a bunch of paper testing, and we discussed this, and it kept beating the Delirium decks, and kept telling him like you need to figure out what your good matchup is because I don't know what it is right now. And the Delirium deck, against this deck was just a walk in the park. And if you go watch, if you are interested, and I've had a couple people reach out about the deck. If you're interested, go watch that matchup. If you want to see what it does to other mid range decks, like look at all the value that Corey McDuffie's trying to go for. Look at all the 2-for-1s he just gets. He played Ishkanah against me multiple times. None of it mattered. It was literally irrelevant. And I just cast Ulamog game 1, and he conceded to it. And then game 2, I was able to drown her with the distance with the Chandra. So,
yeah, we talked about that. Like the black-green deck is like it's built to go long and outlast most decks, but it can't go over the blue-red deck. Like blue-red deck just goes over the top of it. So like if you're not going like the biggest possible, then I don't really know what you're doing.
Now, I do want to say there was an article today written by, I believe, Todd Stevens on the free side of Star City Games about the green-black list that he got 20th place in. And I think that his list is fairly interesting. It's more aggressive and less grindy.
Yeah, he was with like Gnarlwood Dryades and
Correct.
such, right? Yeah.
So if you want an interesting take on the green-black Delirium deck that he definitely seemed very impassioned about talking and like saying that this is a deck that is not necessarily built around Delirium, but just plays cards to naturally get there. I think it's definitely a good place to start if you want to like have a decent list that is different than what you've typically seen, but still good.
Yeah, I mean, and we kind of talked about this last week when we were talking about like interactions and stuff that we expected to see. Like, and I think it's still up in the air like what the best build of Delirium is. Is it a more aggressive slant, or is it like, something more like Ali Antrazi, where he's trying to go all the way up to Emrakul?
Yeah, and I think like Corey McDuffie, my first opponent, he was all in on Delirium, playing a ton of cards that had the text Delirium on it. But there's plenty of black green decks running around that just happen to have like Ishkana and just happen to have like Grimflayer. And if they hit Delirium, those cards get better. But the rest of your cards are okay. I think Corey fell into a trap. I didn't know this when I played against him, but he didn't have anything bigger than a Grasp of Darkness for removal in the 75 because he thought he could just grind people out with Death Mist Raptors. Well, if you can't kill a 5/6 or a 5/5, if you can't kill a Distended Mindbender, or you can't kill if you can't kill a large I take it back. He might have had ultimate prices, but like if you can't kill a large like Sylvan Advocate, like you're going to be in a bad place. So I definitely think like he was trying some new cards and pushing, but you can see how some of these mid-range decks this deck feels really good against. And the best matchup for the Eldrazi deck last format was Black-White Control. Like you had a metagame last format that was Bant, green-white tokens and Black-White Control. This deck has a good matchup against Bant, but it's much closer to the middle. It has an obscene matchup against Black-White Control, so that's like I want to say it's like 70-30, honestly, game one, and it gets better post-board.
Yeah.
And then you had a real bad matchup against green-white tokens, so you were really playing that tic-tac-toe in the metagame. Now, I had a couple people ask me about the sideboard here, because we had Elder Deep Fiends in the main, but we didn't have any smaller creatures to emergent. It's important to know that like Kozilek's Return is good enough on its own, like to sweep the board early, and then you can cast Elder Deep Fiend on normally turn 6, turn 7, or just on turn 8 for just the full value anyways. And trust me, it's totally fine then, even without the Emerge. However, in some of the matchups where the Emerge gets better, you want to bring in some things. So late in the process, I started experimenting with Battery Shapers, and they ended up being very good. You already had Thought-Knot Seers because there are some decks you want to just be able to pressure post-board, and a 4/4 does that while taking their best card, and you have counter magic backup. It's also important to note that like Matter Shaper could be good in the main, but a lot of decks have things like Grasp of Darkness in the main, or Incendiary Flows we saw in the main, or Dromoka's Command in the main. And this dog. Bow wow. This deck does a really good job of blanking that removal game one and causing them to board it out, so that there's a much higher chance you get to keep your Matter Shaper for your Emerge. If you notice, Blue-Red Emerge had one copy in day 2, and one of the reasons, Jerry Thompson said that, like, yeah, they can kill your guys, that plays into your hand. Well, I tested that deck a lot, and sometimes that's true, but other times it slowed you down so much that it was absolutely fine. And this deck doesn't do that. Its velocity is all the end game. It still has a hard time with some of the aggro decks, but luckily, I said Humans was not high in attendance. And the only other real aggro deck, we could talk about that Delirium deck a little bit, or Max Xvetti had a mono red deck that he top 64'd with, but beyond that, that's not present. So it comes down to beating Bant Company, and this deck does have a positive matchup against it. Now, I went 4-3 against it, but 2 of my losses were to Kent Ketter and Andrew Tenjum. In Kent's matchup, I mulled a 5 both games.
I also played against Kent and Mold a lot, so he's got the bad touch against their decks.
He was talking all weekend about the voodoo.
he's got that voodoo. I don't like it.
And against Tenjum, who I really like playing against him. The matches against him are always like, and Dave, you got to play him a couple times recently too, and those matches are always like really tense. But game 3, I kept a really good hand with 3 lands and didn't draw a 4th one until I died. So. Them's the break. So I feel like 2 of the matches were definitely like multiple games were decided by not Magic.
Right. So with the Matter Shapers, that is typically like boarding them in against things like Bant Company decks where it's like, well, this can be a blocker early game, so it can turn on enable the Elder Deep Fiend.
For the most part, I also like it against most decks that were playing Sylvan Advocates.
Yes.
If they had Sylvan Advocates or even like Lambo Pacifists, like granted most of those are company decks, but if you see those at all, like Matter Shaper is great because you can especially if they're on the play, you can like curve them, like, okay, I'll play this, and like, okay, this. Or you just trades with them when you get to block, and that's wonderful. So overall, I think the board was okay. The only card I would not play again is the Nahiri's Wrath.
The card that you said was poopy? Well,
it was fine in testing, and I actually I won 2 games with the card on the weekend, like just flat out won the games with the card. But Spellqueller's numbers are so obscenely high that you just can't get that card Spellquellered. So there were multiple times like I wanted to bring it in against certain, like not every version of Bant Company, but certain versions of Bant Company. I felt it was good enough against, like especially Humans. It was fine, but even some of the Humans lists had Spellqueller just sort of hanging out, and if you ever let that card get spell colored, you have discarded a bunch of cards and you have lost the game. So I just don't think it's worth it in that slot. So the card that I always thought was sort of average, it tested okay as a one of. It's just not worth it now. Sorry, guys. Summary Dismissal is where it's at, though. Play that card.
Yeah, that card was. I never got to cast it, unfortunately.
Sad times.
Yeah, and then I played against a black-white colorless control deck. So this is the deck that had things like Distended Mindbender, Thought-Knot Seer, which when you typically have a good matchup against those decks, but when they shred your hand and you can't do anything about it, that's when it gets awkward, and that's basically what happened in my game. I think game 1 and 3. I think I got game 2, but games 1 and 3, I just didn't have a hand and died. So that was unfortunate. But that's where I would want Summary Dismissal, especially against like Distended Mindbender and any of the merge guys, because those are all cast triggers. So it's pretty good, pretty good.
So yeah, so I lost to the company a couple times, and then I lost to the mirror match, which is horrific. That is the one downside of this deck. If it ever became like popular, and it got to like 5% of the metagame last time, which is close enough to being too popular, because the mirror match, it's not even Magic. It's not. You both hope you hit your land drops, and you hope that you have the Majoring Network and your opponent doesn't, because the first person to cast Ulamog wins the game, because they exile to your opponent's lands or Hedron Archive in a land, and then you never get to cast Ulamog, and that's the game. It's literally the whole game. I managed to win a game despite not casting Ulamog in all 3 games. He cast 4 across the match, 1 in each game and 2 in the third. And he actually is Ryan Nunn. He's a rep from Legit MTG, and he actually finished I think in 34th. So his
is the next highest. His was the highest
his was like almost like
super traditional.
It was like almost no changes. Like he blew me out game 1 by playing a Jace. Like after we fought over a Hedron Archive, and I was like, oh, and I just didn't feel like card in testing was good enough in the main anymore, and it crushed me. So it's sort of interesting. So I lost to that, and I lost to the Green Red Dragons deck that's also in the top 64. Now, I had horrific mana issues in every game against him, and I thought it was definitely winnable. I will say that he tried to resolve a Ulrich von Liechtenstein against me, and I was like, oh my god, like, I'm going to counter this. And then, like, I asked him after the match, I was like, so have that been, this deck seems interesting, like, has that card been good for you? And he's like, oh no, I'm cutting this immediately. He's like, I shouldn't have registered this card.
Fair enough. Card's bad. Sorry.
Yeah, but he said he liked the 1/2 Werewolf and Defender. He liked that card a lot because it lets you play turn 3 like Thunderbreak Regents in the deck.
Interesting.
And then if you like flooded, you're just like, oh, well, here's this big beat stick.
Yeah.
So
I
thought that was
true.
sort of interesting. But man, he has an Ulrich, and I was just like, whoa. And he's like, yeah, it's not good.
Well, he came from Gelderland.
Gelderland.
Oh,
So,
man.
but
Thanks, Tail. Great
So
movie.
if you have more questions about, like, if you are someone, I know a couple people messaged, if you're interested about the sideboard, if you have other specific questions, let me know. The one thing I really love about the sideboard is essentially it splits down the middle into 2 halves. You're boarding out roughly 6 to 8 cards in each matchup. The creature decks, you get to board out clunky counter magic for removal spells. Against anything that's a little dirtier, you get to board out, some of your Kozilek's Returns and other spatials that aren't as good, and bring in quality counter magic and Jace. So it's kind of nice that you have this, like, split in half sideboard.
Gotcha. Now, a question that I have for the deck is someone that would play it. Would you consider any dispels in the sideboard?
So I think the first place I would go in the Heroes Wrath to become a dispel.
Gotcha.
Because I wanted to board out all of the Spell Shrivels and Void Shatters against Band Company, but I also wanted to be able to counter collect a company. So I think this dispel might be where you want to be. Just a one of you can't board in 4 dispel for the 4 collected company. But,
Yeah. That
but I will also say one of the top 8 lists, which I guess this can be our transition. One of our top 8 lists in the Band Company had 2 Summary Dismissal on the board, and if that becomes adopted widely, then yeah, you need dispel.
Yeah.
Because you can't get your Ulamog Summary Dismissal in that matchup. If it like, oh, counter your Ulamog trigger and your Kozilek's Turn trigger, and you're like, oh no, I lose. So,
Yeah, that seems fairly poor. So let's go ahead and get into the top 8 here. The entire tournament was won by Bant Company, piloted by Devin Kupke.
Kopka?
Kepke.
Cupcake.
Yes, Devin Cupcake. And he, it was part of what team
Card
Hoarder. So yeah, this is the list. I believe at least somewhat similar to what Mike and I played against.
Yeah, that's what Kent and Tenjin were playing. I do want to point out that of the two teams that now exist, and we got to spell sling with MGG last week. MGG, you know me. I will say, sorry guys, Card Hoarder is winning the Jersey War.
Oh yeah, the jerseys are on fire. They are lit, as it were, as the kids are saying these days. Well, this is the bank company list that Mike and I played against. That we played against, a few of the Card Hoarder gentlemen, and I was the only victory against them, right?
Yeah, you beat Jesse.
I beat Jesse Hefner. Yes. So their list was sort of like, the hotness because they had Selfless Spirits in the main, which I have to say, very infuriating to play against playing our deck, because it's like, oh, look at all these sweets. Oh no.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to have 2 removal spells, which is
Awkward.
and it did make, compared to other lists, I talked to Ken a little bit about it, and I tested against like the Banned Spirits list, so I knew this card was an issue, but usually you had enough removal spells for it. But this deck has more X3s than Banned Spirits does, so you have to be very careful with your removal spells in this matchup.
It definitely overloads you, and I think that's obviously the point. But yeah, this card was super effective against me when I was playing against Kent. It was sort of a nightmare, and I think that this list is the base. This is like where all their bank company lists kind of start from and go.
Yeah, I think Selfless Spirit. I believe they were the only team that was playing that
Correct.
card in Band Company, and it does several interesting things for the deck. So from a human's perspective, from a white based aggro humans list, it's another card that's like really annoying. Not that I have a bunch of removal anyway, or that I'm going to be wrathing them, but like if they're able to, so say like they have 4 mana up, and I'm expecting them to have Collected Company, but it's like, okay, well, I have to keep attacking to try to pressure them. If they company into a Selfless Spirit, then all of a sudden, like, all my guys are dead.
Yeah, their blocks got real good.
Right. It can also sack itself. So, like, if they flash in an Archangel Avacyn, they could sack to trigger Avacyn. I had that interaction come up against me when I was playing against the Spirits deck, but this list is also running Avacyn and Selfless Spirits. So.
It can also let an Avacyn get triggered in a board state where Avacyn might sweep their board, and then, like, not. It's just like, oh, no, my guys are indestructible.
Right. And like I said, I mean, I know, Mike, you said several times throughout the day that, like, Selfless Spirit was just an annoying card for you to have to deal with. So it's also being a flyer is pretty relevant because this deck formerly was kind of weak to flyers, but now with Spell Queller and also Selfless Spirit, it kind of shores that up a little bit. It also gives it an angle to be able to attack a deck like green-white tokens with the Planeswalkers and stuff that it has. So
Yeah, for sure.
This deck is much more powerful than it was previously, and I really hope that something happens at the Pro Tour to make it to change the course.
Yeah,
of where
we'll get to that in our question of the week.
Yeah,
I do want to mention another card because they're not playing that many new cards. That we had Selfless Spirit and Spell Queller. Beyond that, in the main, we only have one new card, and that's a card that we were all pretty high on. That's Thalia.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is going to be a tale of 2 decks because I think Morgan and I both agree Thalia was hilariously bad against us.
I mean, you definitely had to be aware of it, but you could play around it. First of all, a lot of our dual lands that we would play naturally come into play tap. We have Fumarole and Highland Lake, so
and once you have 3 lands in play, you literally don't care if the rest of the game all your lands come into play tap. You're a deck that's sequencing to do this.
Yeah. So most of the time, it was not very effective at disrupting us. I mean, you could definitely get caught with your pants down in that resolve, but it being a 3/2, it being so easily killed,
dies the Kozilek's return.
Yeah, that's the best thing. You would the decks would start off with playing a bunch of they would go Duskwatch Recruiter into Thalia, and you'd be like, oh cool, I'm just gonna wipe your board, and it felt great.
Yeah,
every time.
When I talked to Tenjin post board, he was like, so I kept these Thalias in, and then I realized they were really bad and boarded them out. He's like, am I right? And I'm like, I think you're absolutely right. The card doesn't do anything. And then he played Dave a few rounds later, and Thalia was obscene.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Dave couldn't get anything going because his creatures came to play tapped. So then he was able to pressure your life total when you're like, I can make this block, I can't make this block ever.
Yeah, he was actually able to race me. Like I'm the aggro deck, and he's the one attacking me and I can't even present a good block because, well, for one, it has first strike. And then on top of that, my guys are coming in to play tap, so I have to wait a turn before I can even try to block. So yeah, it was really good against me. I could also see why they would play, if they expected other company decks, because it allows you to attack and not have to worry about, an Avacyn's going to come down and block and kill something, or like, they're going to company and be able to block with 2 creatures that I didn't expect. So yeah, I mean I don't think it's really that surprising to see Thalia, and like you said, its effectiveness can vary depending on what it's playing against. But
I think more. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish that. I apologize.
I was just going to say, if company continues to be the number 1 deck, I think it's earned its spot.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the numbers are right, because they're committing more, like as many Thalias are here as there are Tireless Trackers, and as they've cut a Duskwatch Recruiter as well to play in this slot. So I wonder if Thalia, like as a 3 of remains, like if it's such a swingy card, if that many copies stay in the main. So I definitely had an opponent against me who had Thalias in their deck show me that 2 Thalias are the only thing they saw of a Collector Company. They were just like, all right, I guess I got a Thalia.
Yeah, they definitely give me some downsides of playing legendary creatures in your deck there. I do have to say that for Mike and I's deck, the Drowner of Hope is kind of hilarious with Thalia, though. I had that come up more than once, where it's like, well, he's coming to play tapped, but it's not
even a big deal.
It's not even that bad.
Tap your guy.
Yeah, and that was the sort of the best part.
No, but I do like this list a lot. You talk about like week 1 lists and like, these are normally not tuned. Man, this list, this first place list feels pretty tuned.
Yeah, I mean it felt really similar. Seeing the overall, just how Bant Company did so well over the weekend, and seeing like how dominant it was in the overall metagame. It felt very similar to back. Was it week 1 or was it the Invitational that was in Columbus? When we
the Invitationals were like you had infinite Bant Company decks.
Okay, so it was the week before it was the SCG Baltimore. Jim Davis one.
Jim Davis one. Yep.
Yeah, it felt similar to that, where like it felt like they were just playing a deck that was just like miles better than anything else that anybody else was doing at the time, and even then, at that point, that deck felt tuned. And again, it wasn't anything totally new because Bant Company was a thing prior to Shadows over Innistrad. Everybody thought the mana was going to be so bad that it wasn't possible. But it's like, oh no, just kidding. It's still it's so powerful that it can fight through the bad mana. It's fine. One thing I just want to touch on, one last thing here about Spell Queller. Obviously, it was a card that we saw all over the place this weekend, and like I was saying earlier, where like it forces the aggro decks to play different. So like, as a humans player, a lot of times it would come up where like, okay, before I would be able to just jam like, okay, turn 3 I'm playing Always Watching and I'm attacking. Now it's like, if I just jam that into a Spell Queller, then okay, my thing gets countered, and now they're going to be able to profitably block because they have a 2/3 that can block and kill most things in my deck. So a lot of times you have to kind of, a lot of times I find myself like having to maneuver like in a way where like, okay, now I have to attack first, and then like hope they just burn a Spell Queller as just a blocker instead of eating my thing and blocking. I don't know. It just presented some awkward situations and definitely slowed down the clock that I was presenting. And I think that's a lot of times all they need to do is really get to 5 mana to be able to cast like their Tragic Arrogance or their Planar Outburst, and then they can take over from there. So that's kind of what happened. So,
yeah, fair enough. Do you want to talk now about only Eldrazi's list? So let's be honest here. I'm not going to talk about any other Bant Company lists.
Yeah, I mean, there were some slight variations. That was the one that I was the most impressed with.
I literally, if you our day 2 metagame breakdown, it says there are 34 copies of Bant Company in day 2, and most of them top 64. So Bant Company is Bant Company. The best version of the deck probably won the event, though.
There was one sweet deck that had was Jack Fogel's list, which he top 16 with, that had 4 Elder Deep Fiends in it. So
that's
pretty sweet. That was different. but it's still Bant Company.
Right. But now we have Sultai Control. Aliandrazi. This is
such an Aliandrazi deck.
Oh yeah, look at all these one-ofs. Hilarious. So I guess he went on a cruise with his family, a Disney cruise, and he said he didn't have time to actually test, but he was brewing lists, so he called it his boat brew. He brewed it on a boat. So yeah, let's look at the numbers here: 2 Den Protector, 4 Sylvan Advocate, 1 Dragonlord Silumgar, 1 Emrakul the Prombos 10, 1 Ishkanah Graf Widow, 4 Jace, Vince Prodigy, 1 Nissa Vastwood Seer, 2 Lilianas. The new one, the Last Hope, 1 Obnixilis, and then Hedron Archives, Grasp of Darkness, Murder, Scour the Laboratory, Ultimate Price, Oath of Jace, Oath of Liliana, Languish, Ruinous Paths, Reversing Unwalled, Lands.
26 lands.
Whew. This is a spicy one.
Yeah, it certainly is. So this is the other Delirium-esque deck that performed well at the tournament. We even see him playing a one of Scour the Laboratory for fun and profit. And that's the
It's a 6 mana, like it's a 6 mana draw 3 cards, but Delirium it costs 2, so it costs 2 less, so it becomes essentially an instant concentrate, I guess. Best.
So that's pretty. I mean, all in all, it's just a pile of cards that he kind of registered, put together.
Sultai cards in a binder.
Yeah, Sultai cards in a binder, as it were, and a Emrakul thrown in for profit. But this is fairly similar in some ways to the Sultai control lists that were showing up in sort of at the tail end of Shadows of Innistrad Standard. He's just kind of taking it and leaning more towards a Delirium sort of path, but his deck has some fairly interesting cards and is playing a lot of new ones. So this is an interesting place to be at, I think, in the format. It's one of the decks that can kind of play Oath of Jace and the oaths to some sort of positive result, which I think is fairly interesting, especially Oath of Jace as it gets cards into your graveyard, which I think is fairly important.
Yeah, I actually saw him play a couple matches, and even like the multiples of Oath of Jace, of being able to put the enchantment in the graveyard, as well as filtering through the deck. Plays a lot of lands, so you're able to filter away maybe if you have some extra lands that you don't really need. But yeah, it's a thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he unfortunately got ran over in the finals. That never really got going. This is definitely a deck that's trying to get to the late game.
If the first place felt very tuned, this one does not feel very tuned.
No, not necessarily.
It is certainly sweet and has a lot of really cool cards, but I do think that it's got some interesting numbers on certain cards and is a little all over the place. But man, it was fun to watch. It was really fun to watch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And see Jace make his illustrious return.
Yeah,
to the finals table.
Yeah, Vince Prodigy apparently a little bit different, a little changed as to his surroundings, but definitely seeing the looter ability be very important in another way.
Right. Yeah, for sure. One card I was super impressed with just overall this weekend was Oath of Liliana. There's one in this deck. I played against that card, and it's better than I thought it was at first glance. The being able to make a 2/2 zombie was particularly relevant with cards like Obnixilis Reignited. So that was a card that, Obnixilis could come down and kill something right away, but a lot of times it would just die on a crackback. And now, being able to protect your Obnixilis will let it stick around. It was just kind of gross.
Yeah, I saw the interaction a bunch with Liliana as well. Play Oath of Liliana, then play Liliana, and then tick up, kill the guy. And then you're like, all right, so the Oath Age of Saka guy, the tick up made you kill a guy, and now there's a 2/2 zombie and a Planeswalker at 4 loyalty. How does your board look?
Or even just it had to happen where it was just tick up Liliana. It didn't even kill my creature, but it made it a 1/2 or something like that, and then I can't even attack because they have a 2/2 zombie. So it made things difficult for sure.
Yeah, I think that's it's good to see like cards sort of surpass your expectations, especially coming from the new set. So maybe Oath could become a player in these sort of slower, more plotting decks, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I expect it. I mean, if black white mid range, which I believe there were a couple of them that did fairly well.
This is one of the top 8 we'll talk about.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like Liliana, like I think fits right into that deck, and I think that was already a deck that was playing a decent amount of Planeswalkers already. So I feel like Oath of Liliana slots right into that.
Yeah, could be. I assume that next up we're going to be talking about that black white deck, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we can quickly mention here because this was a pretty loaded top 8. You Kyle Bogamus in third with Bant Company.
Yeah,
and Eric Rill playing Green White Tokens, which had a terrible showing, really. But all the people that day 2'd top 16, is that right? Yeah, the 3 people that day 2'd also top 16. So Green White Tokens, maybe it was just underplayed because all the people who'd played it on day 2 did pretty well. Though I will say those are like Andrew Boswell and Chris Robinson is the name I don't recognize as much, but like good players. Then Dan Jessup with Bant Company, Matt Voltz's Green Red Goggles, which it was sort of interesting to see that deck come back. I think that deck and the Casey Walton in 7th playing Black Green Seasons Pass that had one new card,
yeah,
like literally one copy of Liliana. That's it. So if you just wanted to be like Dave and play, or myself and Morgan and play Old Standard, you had options. But yeah, we should talk about Ronnie Rittner, who's a Northeast Ohio guy.
Yeah.
With Black White Angel Control, which made a million casuals swoon.
Oh yeah.
He had at least once on camera had a Gruntilda, so it's pretty cool. I'm never calling it by its real name, by the way. You can send your hate tweets to the account, and I will ignore them and continue to call her Gruntilda until she stops pestering Banjo and Kazooie, and stops trying to steal the youth of Tootie, which is Banjo's sister. It's messed up.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Thank you for giving us synopsis on the Banjo-Kazooie video games. Yeah. We appreciate it.
I could probably make this puzzle a little bit easier to understand, Dave, but you'd have to get jiggy with it.
That's a terrible joke. And it's really terrible because Dave doesn't get it. Yeah, I get it too, but Dave doesn't.
You had to collect puzzle pieces.
He didn't laugh, so I'm guessing it wasn't great.
No, he was just thinking na in his head.
It's true. So this is this deck is pretty legendary. I'm not gonna lie.
Wait for it.
So we have 2 Thalia's Lancers. Then we have Archangel Avacyn, Bruna, the Fading Light, 3 Gisela, the Broken Blade, 2 Kalitas, and 1 Limbala. So
that's it.
Those Thalia's Lancers, they getting busy. They finding things.
Hey, there's also a guy who reached sanitarium.
Very true. Can find the land. Very, very, very important. We also have a lot of planeswalkers. So we have Liliana, the Last Hope, 1-up Nixilis, and then 2 swords. Excuse me. So a lot of things that you can only have one of in play at a time. And then sort of the traditional spell suite of various removal spells and interactive spells that you can have, duresses, languishes.
Blessed Alliance, though.
You do have the Blessed Alliance, which is definitely a hot one. Definitely had that played against me in my black-white colorless control match that I had. And I mean, this deck is very similar to the black-white control decks that we had before, but it's really sort of positioning the very, very powerful combination of, obviously, Baruna and Gisela to create the amalgamation of Brizella. And have a giant 9/10 Vigilance, First Strike, Lifelink, can't play spells, seems C3 or less. Just that relatively unbeatable card. I think that this is a very interesting sort of direction to go with that deck, and we'll see if it keeps up. Obviously, this deck has chosen to play some of the creatures instead of playing like Gideons, which I believe were typically where you would see some of these slots go to, and we'll see if people pick this up and continue to run with it.
Yeah, this isn't exactly what I was thinking of when I was talking about the black-white mid-range decks with a lot of planeswalkers in it. This is more a little bit more creature-focused, but still the same general idea.
This is what we have.
This is what we have. That's true. But, Yeah, I mean, Gisela is certainly good enough to be played on its own. In this kind of deck, I mean, this kind of deck can get to the point where it can cast a 7-drop in Bruna. So I think it's worth it playing the 1, especially if you have Thales Lancers as well to kind of be able to search for it. By the way, Gisela is pretty busted with Dramoka's Command. Had that interaction come up.
You gain much to life.
It's gross. But yeah, I mean this deck's pretty sweet.
There's only one card that confuses me in this deck. That's the Felidar Cub in the board. Now, here it's interesting because you only have to board in the 1, and then your Liliana can get it back a couple times if you need it to, which is nifty. But what were they worried about in testing? Like, did the Demonic Pact deck fear that make them so terrified that you know what? I'm gonna have Anguish on making and a Felidar Cub in the sideboard. What other always watching maybe?
I think it could have been a Demonic Pact. I think it could have been.
It just seemed really interesting to me. Sphinx's tutelage. Maybe they were afraid of getting milled.
Oh no, it's probably for what's the green card that you sack creature?
Evolutionary Leap.
That's a card that they definitely are worried about.
Okay, maybe
yeah,
that's
Evolutionary
okay.
Leap for sure.
Fact. True fact.
And honestly, that card didn't do very much this weekend either because of green-white tokens. But
right, but that's a card that's traditionally.
Now you've got me because
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you only had to board in one answer like that, and then your Liliana does let you possibly play it a couple times. So
Yeah.
that's kind of sweet. I just was looking at this card. I was just I just wonder if there's anything and maybe it is Evolutionary Leap, but is it worth playing a Felidar Cub? And that's. Apparently they thought it was.
It's also a symptom of week 1 deck
Sure,
building
sure.
where it's you're not really sure what you're going to see. So it's having an answer like a Felidar Cub. It's all right, it's not taking up that much space. It's fine.
I really hope though, Evolutionary Leap is the logical answer. I hope it was because of Demonic Pact. I just hope
you want to believe that.
I want to believe that as well, because I want that to work. I want that.
That's
to be
the
a
first
thing.
deck you tested, right?
Oh yeah, I put it together. Mardu Pact. It won some games. It felt great to win matches with that card. I will give you that, but I don't think it was. It's definitely a fun deck and not a good deck. So,
Let's talk. I don't want to. I guess I don't want to delve too far into this just yet.
it's not legal. There's no delve card.
Well, I'm just saying because there's so many that are very similar. But let's talk. Let's at least one Spirits list. Let's talk Jeff Hoagland's list because his is doing something pretty interesting.
And I mean, Spirits was what the next most popular deck.
It was the next most popular deck,
on the
and
weekend.
having you played against the deck a number of times. We did in testing. It does exactly what you expect it to do, which is sometimes it's impossible to win against. People were touting how good high running volley is very good against them. I was very high on that card. I had 3 on my sideboard and cut down to 2 though because honestly, any rule spell is good enough against them. And running volley isn't as relevant as you might think against that deck because the way it sets up, it can spell queller it, exile, not counter. It can rattle chains it. It's
Very true.
Oh, it can Selfless Spirit it. There's a lot of weird counters to a card that's uncounterable. But so Blue-White Spirits, this was the creature base we saw a lot of. Not now. Hoagland was going up to Archangel Avacyn, and there were 3 or 4 people playing this list, including Matt Bamonte. But 4 Mausoleum Wanderer, 4 Rattle Chains, 4 Selfless Spirits, 4 Spell Queller, 4 Archangel Avacyn, 25 lands, and then a mix of tempo-y spells and removal. But they were playing Planar Outburst in the main as well. And this is something a couple of different lists were doing. Some were going smaller than this, and you saw things like Unsubstantiate in those lists. I saw some even playing the Drake from Origins, the one that gives flyers +1/+1.
Yeah, the Flash.
Yeah, the Flash Drake. So I thought that was interesting. But I really thought the Planar Outburst in this deck was a pretty interesting idea, at least for week 1, because you're playing 4 Selfless Spirit and 4 Archangel Avacyn, right? Now, granted, hitting 10 mana is unlikely, but
It's ambitious.
but you can definitely have a Selfless Spirit in play and continue to play the game like you don't have a Wrath effect because you've commit so heavy to the board, and then cast it and sack your Selfless Spirit, and your opponent just gets blown out. And he was talking about that happening pretty much all day. So I think that's a pretty interesting way to take Spirits to really start abusing some of the power they have. Not just the power, the synergistic power they have, but also the way that you can build your deck around it.
Yeah, I appreciate him sticking with the Flash plan. Some of these other Spirits decks or some of the lists I've seen are playing things like Anafensic, Entry Spirit, which not only does it not have flash, but it's kind of awkward on the mana because it's double white, and most of your deck tends to be blue. Also, not playing another card that was fairly ubiquitous in the Spirits list which was Nebelgast Herald.
Yeah,
which is the 2/1 flash that can tap a creature whenever. I didn't know this. Whenever a spirit enters the battlefield, I thought it was just that, just that card. And then one of my opponents flashed in a Rattle Chains or something like okay, tap that. I'm like, with what? This. Oh. But yeah, he's not playing that card, and he's not even playing Reflector Mage.
Yeah, that's probably the one I was most surprised to not see. Now, I will say he does have Bygone Bishops on the board. That's the other card I saw a ton of in the Spirits list.
Right, yeah.
And it felt fine, but yeah, again, another creature to play on your turn, and the Flash creatures were, miles better. Now, granted, Rattle Chains sometimes means you get to play it whatever you want.
Oh, yeah, but you're not always going to have the Rattle Chains.
Right.
Sometimes it dies, and, but, yeah, I mean, he's really, really committed to the Flash plan, and, playing the counter spells, and also things like Stasis Snare, which is an instant. So I mean, he's really, really committed to the Flash plan, which that might be the way to go. I don't know.
I mean, Flash is pretty good in general. Now, I will say his board plan was also interesting. Had a lot of counter magic. I know Jordan got to play against him day 2, and got confirmed suspicioned.
Ooh.
And I can attest to casting that card. Feels great.
you can confirm.
Can confirm those suspicions.
Yeah.
So Spirit Sexy, obviously this varies a little bit, but I thought his was unique enough that we have a shell now for Spirits, just like we have a shell for Bant Company. So now it'll be interesting to see where people take these lists.
Yeah. And I can see people still wanting to continue to go through and play and want to tune this and refine it even more so. And we'll see if it continues. We'll see if it's something that we see at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I think the problem with Spirits is that it's just not, and I think we talked about this last week, where it's like power level wise, it just can't compete with Bant Company, and you have to try to play that tempo game, and it's hard to do. Now maybe playing with more counter spells and things like that, being able to actually, the Bant kind of gets to a point where it can play Flash, like it could, sometimes they have. They have obviously they have Spellcaller now, and then obviously they have Collected Company. Some of them are running a Bounding Krasis and things like that. This can kind of play on that same level where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to leave my mana up, so what are you going to do? Like, I'll make them go first. So we'll see. I mean, it doesn't have the raw power level with the cards, but it can kind of play that same game that Bant Company is trying to play.
Now, if I can here, I want to go over just some quick hits, if that's cool, and then we can sort of move on here. Because again, you really have to start going down to start seeing some lists that are a little more unique. But 36th place is the list that Dave you described, John Midrange, and this deck is interesting. It's got 7 Planeswalkers. It also has creatures that go from Hangwreck Walker to Kalidas to Woodland Bellower to Mournwillow.
Oh yeah. I played against this deck.
I know, that's what I said.
I got ran over. It was not close.
I mean, man, how awesome of a board state do you have to have where if you just go Woodland Bellower, get Mournwillow, trigger, you're dead.
You're dead.
What?
So imagine this as a humans player where all your guys are 2/2s or 2/1s. We have main deck Kolaghan's. Kolaghan's Command is pretty good too, but Kozilek's Return main, 2 Languish main. Liliana Last Hope is a very good card. Chandra, Flamecaller, which I got wiped out with in game 1.
Okay, hold on. Is the numbers on this right?
Yeah, it looks.
No, look at the numbers.
It looks off, but
28 plus 7, 35 plus 31. So this is 66 cards.
I don't know.
All right. Well, again,
know,
this deck looks sort of all over the place, but man, some sweet stuff here. I also want to mention a deck that I lost to in 42nd place. Kevin Breyer, that's the Green Red Dragons list. If you want to take a look, has a Mirror Wing Dragon playing Hanwha Garrison, which that card is very, very good.
Yeah.
And you see some Ulrich there of the Carlin Horde, and Arlencord. So pretty awesome. And then I want to mention real quickly Ian Bosley in 49th place, playing Green Black Emerge, which this is sort of a Cryptolith deck, which we thought Green White Tokens was absent. Cryptolith, where to go? Well, here it is, and it's interesting because this one is kind of doing what you thought it might be able to do. It's playing Decimator of the Provinces and Distended Mindbenders, along with its normal shell of Elvish Visionaries, Lone Dryads. It goes a little bit bigger and has like Reality Smasher too, and also some Lilianas. So it can play that sort of like spam the board. All of a sudden, we're attacking you. This is probably as close to a Craterhoof Behemoth deck as you'll get in this format. So.
I could definitely agree with that sentiment.
So I don't know if I agree with all the numbers here and some of the stuff, but the shell, again, is there. And then, Dave, I think you like this next one, Blue-Red Prowess by Scott Ferguson. There's some Bedlam Revelers for you. And Curious Homunculus.
I can dig it. Yeah, he was playing next to me in one of the rounds, and I was kind of like in between games. I'm looking over. I think he was playing against Max McVitie. He was playing Mono Red, so I'm looking over. I'm just like, oh, Mono Red against Blue Red Prowess, huh? Haven't seen that. Haven't seen those decks at all today.
Yeah, he was playing 3 pieces of the puzzle to go along with his take inventories, which is kind of sweet because if you see multiple take inventories off like of your pieces of the puzzle, then you only have to take one to get sort of the card advantage. So, and then I do want to also mention Max McVitie's Mono Red aggro deck in 59th place, which was called, I think, Secret Burn is what they were calling it.
yeah, initially, yes.
Shh, Secret Burn. This deck, I saw it in action a number of times, and I'll be very honest, I was not impressed. Neonate looked really bad. But he still did fine. I will say Thermo Alchemist was a lot better than I thought it was. I got to see a couple of matches where I was just like, oh man, you're dead. And I wonder if Chandra shouldn't be in this list too. Little kid, Fire Kaladesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a card we didn't even talk about in the spoiler. So Thermo Alchemist.
Yeah.
So this is the colorless in a red 0/3 defender in the red deck, does have the text tap to deal damage to each opponent, and then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you untap it. So it's able to do some damage, I think, especially in multiples, if you get a couple of these out. And then also everybody's favorite reach creature, Weaver of Lightning on the sideboard.
That card actually is really sweet out of the sideboard. 1/4 with reach. Take that, Spirits.
Yeah, no joke.
And it just kills them all.
It does have Chandras on the board. I guess I meant so. Yeah, so just there are some, if you're trying to sort of like, pull through the dregs, you're like, you're sitting there like, oh, well, Band Company, oh god, more Band ooh, Secret Burn. They're there. There are some decks there. Hopefully, we can use those decks to build a format that isn't only Band Company.
Yeah, I mean that would be swell.
Because Smokey told me that only we can prevent Band Company.
And
Forest Fires. It was both.
It's mainly Forest Fires, though.
He did seem to care more about the Forest Fires than Band Company. I may have coerced him to also suggest that we should stop Band Company.
You shouldn't coerce a bear.
He loves honey.
Well,
I was like, how much honey do I have to give you for you to hate on Band Company? It was like, less than you think. Let's be honest. It's less than you think.
Is like Smokey the Bear like a federal, like a public employee? Like, cause there's probably laws against you.
So he's a bear. He can't be a federal employee. That's actually the reason he takes a little honey. They don't pay him.
That seems discriminatory.
The only reason he continues to work for them is because they let him wear pants. Most bears aren't allowed to wear pants, but they let him wear pants.
It's a luxury most bears.
Yeah, exactly. Don't he's not your average bear.
Now we're blending into Yogi Bear, who could wear a tie and a collar.
Again, also not paid by the parks.
The hat's
also not paid by the parks, but was allowed to wear clothing.
Interesting.
But
he's a thief.
Think about the message though. Don't feed the bears, and then you have a bear that's kind of dressed like a human. Like that's messed up. Like you shouldn't confuse people. Don't feed the bear that's kind of dressed like a human. Like maybe don't let him dress like a human. Maybe take his tie away.
I believe that we've gone off the rails, and that we should return to talking.
It was only a matter of time.
It's true.
I just like being convincing about crazy things. Makes my day.
Okay.
And Smokies.
Anything else from Standard that we would like to discuss?
Not yet.
All right. Let's move on to the Modern Classic. And the winner of that tournament was Steve Martin. No, it's Steven. It's Steven Martin.
What do you think? He's some kind of jerk or something?
His top 8s are getting cheaper by the dozen.
Yeah, that's the one you referenced. That's what you go with.
I'm not proud of this.
You couldn't even construct a Roxanne reference or anything like that.
I don't know. I guess to get to these tournaments, you have to take a lot of like planes, trains, and automobiles. Does that help? Is that better?
Well, let's just. He played Affinity.
Live from New York.
Stop. And this is we haven't really seen Affinity win one of these in a while. I feel like so it's kind of interesting for it to show up and sort of be able to take the whole thing down. So a shout out to him being Merfolk, piloted by Dorian Finn in the finals.
If your name is Finn, you have to play Merfolk.
I mean, it seems like you're already sort of
Halfway there.
Priced in at that point in time. I mean, geez.
So check out this Mono White Hate Bears deck. Fourth place, Max Hirsch. 4 Selfless Spirits.
Yeah, so I one of the reasons I want to talk Modern is because I'm looking through all the Hate Bear and Death and Taxes lists to see if Thalia, the new Thalia made it, and none of them did. But yeah, I saw those Selfless Spirits. I was like, oh, okay, something broke through though.
Yeah.
So there's only one other new card that cracked the top 16. Do you know what it is?
I may have missed it.
Summary Dismissal.
Yes.
It was in the Scapeshift deck in 16th, I believe, sideboard.
Oh
Yeah.
man! Oh my gosh! Scapeshift goes off. It's like, all right, put these triggers on the stack. You're like, well, actually,
Or you could just
about
counter
that.
the Scapeshift.
no. I want them to get all their mountains out of their deck. Like, why wouldn't I want all their mountains out of the deck? Let the Scapeshift
that's
resolve.
pretty funny.
Let all the mountains come into play. Exile the triggers and ask them to find a way to win the game.
I enjoy the asking them to find a way to win the game.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That's pretty nice. Nice little piece of tech right there. We also do see Ad Nauseam. Hey, showing up in 15th. So awesome.
Also, shout out to a local guy, Jack Rumpf, the 5-color aggro deck. We played against. I think Dave and I both played against him.
I
in
believe,
recent weeks.
multiple times. Yeah.
He also got a sweet daily deck article this week, which was Make Magic Rumpf again.
Yeah, certainly an ambitious deck, and he must really enjoy his confluences and his ancient
Whoa.
Ziggurat's.
By the way, Spellqueller's in this deck, Dave.
Oh no!
I think we missed
Yeah,
that one.
This is a Pillar of the Parents 5-color aggro.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. If you can resolve Blood Moon against this deck, it's pretty good. In case
not
you're
wrong.
wondering.
but yeah, this is a 32 creature 6-spell aggro deck. Definitely one of the greediest things I think I've ever seen. Sleeved up for
True story.
a Magic tournament, but man, more power to him. I mean, I can't. I would play this deck. I would. It's
I mean,
playing.
like-
It's playing Fulcrum Aristocrat and Mantis Rider.
So if you go like turn one Hierarch into turn 2 Mantis Rider, attack for 4, like
you feel great
yeah, and then you just like untap and cast Adrenal.
because that makes sense. Because you should always be able to do that,
Magic's quite the
or
game.
just like untap and play Fulcrum Aristocrat. Oh gosh, so good, man.
Oh man, and no Hierarch, definitely a human. Oh man, so sick.
Yeah, all this is sweet, and I appreciate it, and it's something that obviously him being local to Comic Town, we definitely get to see from time to time. So, awesome! Congrats to you, Jack. Let's move on to Legacy real quick and just talk about what won. It was Sneak and Show, piloted by Tom Luckett. Defeating,
How lucky!
defeating Caleb Shearer, hey, in the finals, with obviously Caleb Shearer using his own invitational token to great effect, playing Storm. But I mean, if you could beat Storm and live the Caleb Shearer playing Storm and live to tell the tale, you probably did a pretty good job over the weekend. Of course, this is the finals, and who knows what actually happened if they actually played it out or what have you. Who knows? But Caleb Shearer kind of being a notable name in the finals here.
I wonder if this one trick bind in the sideboard came into play.
Who
That'd be
knows?
pretty sweet. Can't counter that one.
You cannot. Now, the 9th place list is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
This is something like, because I always look at the Legacy decks going, oh, look at this, look at all these lovely cards I'll never be able to buy. Again, this is one of those decks.
Candelabras.
Because, this deck plays Candelabra of Tawnos. But this is a blue-green Eldrazi Post deck. This is playing Posts. Glimmer Posts,
It's also playing New
Cloud
Emrakul.
Posts, and Glimmer what?
It's
Point?
Yeah, Glimmer
Glimmer
Posts. They're posts.
Yeah,
they're
they're
low.
both posts.
They're low guys.
Okay. Yeah, playing Promised End. The end that was promised is here. And Primeval Titan, Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, as well as an Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, which I know is like a huge boon to this deck. Getting the 10 is something that you can easily do. And you also have the backup plan of Show and Tell to get some of these big fatties into play. Of course, you do see Candela Vertanos being the high price point of this list for sure, as well as some duels that you have to pick up. But this list is awesome. You get to play like Ugins to great effect. But yeah, I think this is like if I were gonna have access to it, it might be this one because it's a lot. It looks just like a lot of fun.
It seems like a lot of legacy decks just fold to Ugin. Like if you get Ugin in play, I don't think this is very
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of stuff.
No easy way to get that off the board.
There's definitely a lot of stuff that's just like, well, all right. But this deck looks fun. I know that Kenji Igashira, Numatanami, definitely has played Post in Legacy on his stream a lot, so that's mainly where I know it from. But it is a very underplayed and underrepresented deck in the Legacy format, so it's kind of fun to see it here show up in 9th place. It's too bad he didn't top 8, but maybe
Close enough.
maybe the Promised End is what this deck needed, and it can have a very promising future. Huh?
Got it.
Yeah. All right.
Did Smokey the Bear write that one for you?
He did. He's my ghostwriter on the podcast. So I believe that's going to be everything for our competitive segment. Let's move on to a question of the week, and I feel like this is a good one to kind of ask. I kind of know my answer for it already, and we'll see what everyone else kind of says here on the podcast, though. But is Collect Company moving towards a ban in Standard? This would put it, obviously the ranks with things like Tolarian Academy, Skull Clamp, Arcbound and Ravager, Stoneforge Mystic, and Jace the Mind Sculptor, which are noble cards that have banned within their standard formats. What do you guys think? Who wants to start?
So I guess I'll start because I posed the question, and I sort of have always laughed off standard bans. Like, do you know what it takes to ban a card in Standard? Like, the format has to be really, really. How many Day 2 ban company? How many in the top? That's not disconcerting. How many 3-drop cards do they also print to put? It goes and collect. Oh man, that's and Spirit and that's. Collect the Company is a weird card. It works much like something like Show and Tell does in Legacy, whereas the more cards that exist that you can put in it, the more powerful it becomes. Now, this is the largest the format will ever be with Collect the Company in it before it rotates. I think the card is dangerously close to being banned. Now, we have a short time to rotation, quite honestly. It'll rotate in October. Which is 3 months away, which for people playing Standard, that's a fair amount of time, but overall for a format, that's not that long. So if there's an argument for it not to be banned, it's the amount of time. But based on the results from this week, I have to feel like if the Pro Tour mirrors this, and I do literally mean mirroring this, if we look at the top blank list, here's a list that would X and blank and better at the Pro Tour, and 60% of them are banned company decks, it's going to be hard to justify not doing something about it.
I'm going to say it won't be banned because it can't be banned at this point. So we already had the banned and restricted announcement.
Well, so this would be talking emergency banning. That would literally be what this is.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, even Stoneforge and Jace, which were the two most recent cards that were banned in Standard, they were banned near the tail end of them being in Standard, but it was still in accordance. And I think those cards were not only saw so much play in Standard, but they were very oppressive. And I guess you could say that for Collective Company as well, but I just don't feel it's as much. I don't know. I've playing in both formats. Basically, if you weren't playing Jace, it was what are you doing?
You were casting Tempered Steel. Come on.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing in that format.
I guess so. But yeah, no, it's not like some unbeatable combo. Like I think the only emergency ban we ever had was Memory Jar. It's we no longer have we have no more BNR announcements before it rotates out, so for it to actually be banned. So I think we're just stuck with it until Kaladesh. So that's my answer.
I'm kind of with Dave. I don't think it'll get banned. Just for the sheer fact that I think it takes so much. It takes so much for them to be like, okay, this needs to be emergency banned. I think like it's rough on us. It's rough on the competitive player because it feels like Bant Company has been the deck since before like Shadows, and it had like a little bit of a wane when Shadows came out, and like Green White Tokens was the top dog, but even that was Bant Company was still a player and like gained a lot of steam towards the end of the format, and then we see it being like the top dog in this format, and it's just like it feels it's getting to that point where it feels like if you're not playing Bant Company, then you're just like making a mistake, and I think that is sort of the precipice of when you would want to like ban a card. And I think that's a lot of reason why things like Stone for Mystic and Jason Mind Sculptor got banned, Skull Clamp, Ravager, because they created these formats where it's like if you're not playing X deck, then you're just doing it wrong. I think that we can't necessarily make this judgment until like the Pro Tour happens, and as you said, we kind of need to see like this deck continue to be a majority portion of the metagame for it to even be considered. But it's so hard. I think it's so hard to have something emergency banned, especially with how quickly rotation does happen. So I think that Wizards just kind of made this bed with Collect Company, and we've said time and time again on this podcast that Dragons in itself is kind of warping the format. And I think we just kind of have to grin and bear it, and hopefully something revolutionary comes out of the Pro Tour that helps us combat it, because maybe we can't see it right now. But I don't think it'll be banned. I think it's just something that we're just gonna have to wait out and wait until Kaladesh comes in.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you in like hoping that the Pro Tour will give us something to fight.
Now,
and I think we will get something.
I think the danger is if it doesn't, then I don't think that Standard will be very popular. Until rotation happens.
Yeah, so that's where my thought comes in. Yeah, it's pretty rare. It would be, again, I don't think it would be an easy thing for them to do an emergency ban, but I don't think I don't think you can just say, oh, well, they haven't done this in so long that they just wouldn't do it. I mean, we could hope, we could sit and hope that somebody finds a deck that beats it, but I think there's a much higher chance that the major teams come in with very finely tuned versions of Bant Company and just play them. And how many lists in the top 8 have to be Bant Company before Wizards starts going and considering I think that's the real consideration then, like really thinking about tournament turnout heading into their first real rotation into this block. That I guess you could hope that maybe people hate Collect Company so much that by the time Kaladesh comes out, people are like, our savior, you know what I mean? Like, thank you, rotation. Or will you put so many people like sour on Standard for this new rotation setup, and people are like, well, you ruined this format for so long, and now you want me to play in these shorter formats? Nah, I'm done. And I think it's a really real fear if this deck is that oppressive. Now, we don't know yet. Again, I do think the Pro Tour will be really telling, but I stand by my statement. I think there is a threshold where that deck is so represented that they would take action. I'm not sitting here like, oh, did you hear Mike on Insurance? I'm guaranteed they're gonna ban Collected Company. Take it to the bank. And they're like these like radio sounders like, like. But in all seriousness, I think there is a number, like there's a percentage threshold of representation where they will take action.
Yeah, I think that could be the case, or at least that's what we would want. Because I tell you what, like, there's nothing that can kill a format faster than like just instantaneous stagnation, where it's just like nothing new is made or developed. because the best thing has already been found, and you should just be doing the best thing. The sentiment that I've heard a lot from Twitter is people saying, good luck to those trying to attack all the accesses that Band Company attacks from. And I think that might be the most damning thing against it, is that is a deck that has a lot of angles, and you cannot just have a trump to it. And I think that could be sort of the thing that we see at the Pro Tour. And if that's what we see, then either you have two roads that you can take. You can let it happen and have Band Company just be like the de facto deck until rotation, and that's all she wrote. And I think if you choose that route, that you have less people watching Standard, you have less people wanting to play Standard, and just people being okay to not attend tournaments, not play until rotation. And hopefully they come back, and or you can come in and say collect company's banned until the end, because we understand that this card has been too oppressive, and there's just too much that is available for them to have. We thought that the mana wouldn't come together for these decks as well as it has, but clearly we were wrong about this. So we're just going to ban it, and then maybe you have an explosion of different kind of archetypes being viable, or maybe another maybe Green White Tokens just becomes the next de facto deck. But you just hope that something comes along that can counteract it, or people just adjust to it with other decks. But we'll see. I'm excited for the Pro Tour. I think this last Pro Tour, we did see a lot of decks that were kind of new and fresh and kind of came out of left field. So hopefully we see that again. And it's not just a bunch of Band Company mirrors, because that sounds miserable to watch, and no one wants that.
That was a good point, Hank. He started off that entire statement with "I tell you what," and that's all that's stuck on my head. You're worried about that Band Company, I tell you what.
God dang it, Bobby.
God dang it, Band Company. There is another worry to that, too, and this one can't be fixed with bannings, but it's also possible that the best deck in the format is just like an old deck. Like, Great Tokens actually isn't that bad. And you see Seth Manfield and Steve Rubin once again, just like at the top. It's like, hey, we're just going to play this, we're just going to play this deck. Does that sound good to you guys? And you're like, oh, nice innovations to beat oh no, the format hasn't changed. So
yeah, that would be the most disappointing thing, is this new set and then no changes, except for Selfless Spirits being
just Selfless Spirit and Spell Queller
just being
get on my format.
Yeah, the most played cards, most represented cards, because they fit into an archetype that desperately needs an indestructible effect and a exile target spell.
Desperately needs, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And so if it does turn out that Band Company is just the best thing after the Pro Tour, then I'm probably not playing Standard until Kaladesh.
Yeah, because I'm not going to buy into that deck. There's no point. There's so many things rotating out of the deck. Whatever. So, but I think that sucks, and I think that puts a lot of people in an awkward place, and I think that really sucks for Eldritch Moon. But maybe that means people just go into it and draft it more, because I heard it's actually a really fun draft format. So
yeah,
but
I will say this though, it was the most popular deck going into the last Pro Tour, and it wasn't the best deck coming out. So
yeah,
hopefully,
maybe that'll be the case this time. Yeah. I don't foresee that being how it plays out. I think that Selfless Spirit and Spell Queller are huge boons to that deck, because it again changes the way that you have to counter it, and you just can't anymore. You can't effectively do that time and time again. So maybe the right combination of stuff just hasn't been found, and we'll just have to wait and see. But I think the deck is getting to a dangerous point, and it could be time to step in, or it could be time to, if you don't want to play it, to maybe tail off a Standard. It is modern PPTQ season, so there you go. Put your time and effort into that. I don't know. All I know is that the deck seems almost too good, but yeah, I don't think Wizards wants to make an emergency ban, and I think that's why they made rotation happen sooner, because they don't want to have to do that, and they just want people they'll always lean back on the fact that it's only X amount of months, and I think that hopefully going forward, that won't be something that we see a lot, but I think it's something we'll see right now in regards to Band Company. So that's my 2 cents.
I already gave you my nickel.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. So over the weekend, we do have a Star City Games open in Baltimore, which will be standard again. So we'll see if history repeats itself, and we see more Band Company time and time again. This is the tournament we have before we have the Pro Tour in Australia. So this is the last bit of standard before we have that lovely Pro Tour spin on things, and so that'll be exciting to follow. And is there going to be coverage of this one?
Yeah.
Perfect. So we'll be covered. You can go ahead and watch it, which will be great if you have the time over the weekend. Locally speaking, we do have a couple of tournaments. I know that I really wanted to speak about one. I believe that there is a charity tournament being held.
That Epic Loot.
Yes, correct. At Epic Loot, and is to benefit autism awareness. So if you do want to go out and play Magic for a good cause here in the local area, did I phrase that poorly?
You paused so long before you said awareness. It's like we're having a tournament to benefit autism.
Awareness.
Like I think we're trying to build awareness and help the. No, it's honestly a great. They have a ton of donations coming in.
Yes.
And, they've done a great job with this every year, and it's pretty awesome. So I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but I'm really excited to see more and more of these tournaments that are charity based like this. We had the Blank You Cancer tournament, and then there's the I'm gonna forget they just had one in Toledo, and they hold it every year, and I can't remember which one it was. Shoot, but either way, there's a number of tournaments like this. So, and Epic Loot does a really good job with this one, and really makes it worth the player's time while also raising a lot of money. So,
yeah. So again, if you are in the local Midwest, Ohio, area or what have you, I definitely encourage you to go out and have a big showing. Go play Magic for a good cause. I mean, how often do you really get to do that? And definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Comic Town. Check them out. You can go to Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook and see some of the events they have upcoming on their end. While you're doing that, please look us up on Facebook. You do a quick search for At Your End Step, and we pop up. And give a like to our page. That's where you can catch up on our announcements and interact with us. And then we also have Twitter. It's @ Your End Step. So it looks like At Your End Step when you tweet at us and stuff like that. It's very clever, we know. And we have email. So atyourendstep@gmail.com. So feel free to communicate with us. If you can, subscribe to us on iTunes or via the Google Play or the Google Music app if you want. Leave us a review on iTunes. We really appreciate it. It gives us a lot of visibility, and then a good way for us to check on feedback from you folks in regards to the show. And we also want to give a shout out to MTG Cast. That's another great place where you can find our show, as well as other lovely Magic podcasts like Magic the Amateuring and the Mana Pool, things like that. So if you like to listen to Magic podcasts, it's a great place to pick them up. So while you're there, download some new podcasts, maybe throw them a buck or two for hosting on those podcasts, and having a one central location for them. They definitely do a great service for us as a Magic community, so it's important to definitely give back what you can. And I think that's pretty much everything for this week. We'll catch you guys next time, and you have a great one. Bye.